Welcome to another edition of PvR Sports. We're here on this beautiful Sunday, June 2nd, 2019, coming off an epic night of boxing. Last night, Deontay Wilder watched as Anthony Joshua and Ruiz competed, or you could say fought for 4 titles, 3 sanctioned, 1 non-sanctioned, WBO, WBA, IBF, and the 1 non-sanctioned was the IBO belts. And it was a huge upset, the biggest upset in, I wouldn't say boxing history, because I still think Buster Douglas was the biggest upset in boxing history, but it was one of the biggest in boxing history, and you could say the biggest over the last 30 years, where Andy Ruiz came in as a 24-1 underdog. Put it this way, I was in a position to place a bet of $5 on a stoppage between the 7th and the 12th round. That $5 bet would have won me, I think, if I'm not mistaken, around $650 just for a $5 bet. So he was a huge underdog, and somehow he pulled off the victory. He looked good in the fight. Won by 7th round TKO. Anthony Joshua was actually dropped in his fight 4 times. In the 3rd round, he caught Andy Ruiz with a left hook, dropped him, and somehow I guess that punch woke Ruiz up, because Andy at that point started to put in work, and he became a slick boxer. He landed strong, hard counter punches, worked Anthony Joshua to the body late in the fight, was able to drop him 2 more times in the 7th round, and eventually ended the fight because Joshua spit out his mouthpiece, walked back to his corner, turned his back on the referee. The referee asked him to come out, get ready to fight. He stayed in his corner, never came out, never tried to show that he was still ready to fight, and the referee ended the fight. So the reason I want to have this podcast today, and the reason I wanted to record today, was just I was thinking about this fight, and this was such a huge upset. This fight really, set off a chain reaction, because you had a pending fight with Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder that at the moment was probably 100 million easily, or I would say 80 to 100 million easily for both fighters. And possibly, if the fight was a good fight, 100 million to 120 million for each fighter, if the fight was tight, if it was a good fight in the first one. So you could have had a rematch, and these 2 guys were lined up and in position to probably take home, I would say, at least $150 million in 2 fights, if not more. Maybe even Pacquiao Mayweather money, where they could have made $200 million in 2 fights each. So this fight really set off a crazy chain reaction. This really hit the boxing world hard, in a good way and a bad way. In a bad way, it's kind of let down, because you're not gonna crave for the Wilder AJ fight anymore. That's dead. I'm not saying the fight is dead, because I still think it'll be a good fight. I still think that if AJ came back strong and won a couple of good fights, that they still can do pretty good on a fight, but it's not going to be what it was. It's not going to be this mega fight since Lennox Tyson. It's not going to be this mega fight like Ali Frazier, like Joe Louis, Max Schmeling. It's not going to be that anymore, unless AJ could just have a miraculous turnaround where he can go out and maybe knock out the next 3 top 10 heavyweights and show that it was just a fluke that he lost last night. But the way he lost wasn't a fluke. So I'm a huge Wilder fan. I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm African American, and I'm going to pull for my guy. But Wilder is also a good fighter. Wilder is 41-0, 40 knockouts, and that's who I go for. That's who I'm pulling for. That's who I want to win if he fought AJ. If they fought each other, let's say, undefeated, biggest boxing match in probably the last 50 years, and just if it was that situation, I would put my money on Deontay Wilder. But I'm also a fan of boxing first. And AJ lost last night. It was shocking. It gave boxing another jolt needed, because from the Wilder one-punch knockout to the Devin Haney one-punch knockout, boxing has been on the radar. Boxing has been, on social media, and it's starting to pick back up, and it's coming back to life. So boxing is a sport where I can see where in the next 5 years it really grows. So I'm a boxing fan first. And as a boxing fan, as a fan of Deontay Wilder, hey, it's a bad deal, because Deontay Wilder should have been the one that knocked him out and made that money. As a boxing fan, it's two things. It's a good thing because now you have another contender in the heavyweight division, which makes the heavyweight division even stronger now than what it was 2 days ago, because Andy Ruiz, he didn't catch Joshua with a blind shot or with a lucky punch. He actually dismantled Joshua over from round 3 to round 7. He destroyed Joshua. He landed counter hooks. He landed counter rights. He was actually sticking a jab to the body. He landed some good, strong body shots that pushed Wilder back, that pushed Joshua back in the 6th round. So he just added to a division that was already getting stronger. So people say Joshua lost. He was number 1 in the division. I never had him number 1. I had Wilder number 1, because Joshua has showed me he has some suspect tendencies as far as taking shots. And it's because he's young in his career. He's only fought 22 times. So he really hadn't been in there with a lot of great fighters. Although he has 3 belts, those belts kind of aligned for him perfect the way they were vacated. They were vacated by Vitaly Klitschko from Tyson Fury, dealing with his drug issues. So the belts were lined up for him, set up for him perfect. So he didn't have to do much work to get those belts. So with that said, I want to talk about, if I had the opportunity to speak with Anthony Joshua, what would I say to him? If I was in if I was on a plane with him today flying back to the UK, and I could have a one-on-one 5-minute conversation with Joshua, what would I say to him? What would I tell him to help him recover and get back to the next level? And the first thing I would say is I would tell him that, Joshua, keep your head up. Several fighters have lost in this manner over time. It's something that's normal in the boxing world. It's not the end of the world. If you look at Ali losing to Leon Spinks, Ali was a world champion, considered the greatest fighter of all time at that point, and he lost to a guy with only 7 fights. Only 7 fights in his boxing career. Although Leon Spinks was a gold medalist in Olympics and he was a good fighter, he only had 7 professional fights, and Ali lost to him on a split decision, if I'm not mistaken. Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling. Max Schmeling was a good fighter. He lost 7 fights at the time he fought Joe Louis. Joe Louis was an undefeated phenom in the United States. 24-0, had knocked out almost everybody he fought, was absolutely incredible. And at the time, it was a big, I guess you say, issue between the United States and Germany. So this was a big fight for the United States. United States versus Germany. Joe Louis versus Max Schmeling in New York City on our turf. And Max Schmeling came in and knocked Joe Louis out and beat Joe Louis in the 12th round. Huge loss, not just for Joe Louis, but for the United States. You had Lennox Lewis versus Rockman. Rockman came in as a heavy underdog. Lennox Lewis came in as the champion. Nobody could beat him. He was running the division, the heavyweight division, and boom, I think it was the 5th or 6th round where Rockman caught him with a vicious shot that knocked him clean out. And I remember that shot like it was just that hit him so hard that his dreads actually flew back like they were coming off his head. But that was a huge loss for Lennox. Lennox avenged that loss, came back and knocked Rockman out like in the 1st or 2nd round in the next fight. Then you have Roy Jones versus Antonio Tarver. Roy Jones was considered pound for pound the greatest fighter to ever live at that point. And Roy Jones had gone from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight and won the heavyweight title versus Ruiz. And that was incredible because in middleweight, I think Sugar Ray Robinson, if I'm not mistaken, Sugar Ray Robinson or I can't think of who else was it that may have done it, but I think Roy Jones was the first modern day boxer who actually went from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight to win a title. And, you know, he had this little rivalry with Antonio Tarver. Antonio Tarver came in. First fight, fought him good. It was a majority decision. Roy Jones won. Everybody felt like Tarver could have gotten a decision in that fight. So Roy Jones wanted to prove himself and said, hey, I was coming down from heavyweight. I didn't have all the energy. Now I'm going to stay at 175 and I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be fully, I'm going to be at full strength. And he was knocked out in the second round. Incredible. Nobody could believe it. Roy Jones was 49-1. His only loss was a disqualification for actually knocking the dude out and punching him while he was down. So he really hadn't been defeated in the ring. So Anthony, those fighters, those are great fighters. Those are Hall of Fame fighters. Those are some of the top fighters in our history. And they've taken losses like this. And those guys still recovered, still came back, and still had wonderful, great careers and didn't give up. I think you need to take a step back. I think you need to go to the drawing board, and I think you need to figure it out. And what I mean by that is don't take the immediate rematch. Everything inside of you, the burning desire, is telling you to jump back into the ring with this guy. But from what I saw last night, it wasn't that type of loss like Lennox Lewis and Rockman. Rockman and Lennox Lewis fighting, and, you know, Lennox Lewis a little off, and Rockman catch him with a punch he don't see, knock him out. That's one punch. The way he beat you showed everybody in the world that know boxing that not only were you off that night, but he really outclassed you most of the fight. And he really dominated you from the 3rd round to the 7th round. And that's not to discourage you or say you can't beat this guy. Because, hey, you could take the immediate rematch and defeat this guy. I would never say that to you. But what I will tell you is if you're trying to salvage this career and build this legendary legacy that you want, I think you need to take a step back and go back to the drawing board and figure things out. And I'm talking about from mentality all the way down to how you step in the ring on fight night and your mindset to stepping in the ring and everything in between, from training, from how your boxing style is and everything. I think you need to actually rebuild your style. And I don't mean your style as in how you box and how technical you are, because you're a very technical fighter. You have good technical skills. I'm not going to take that away from you. But some of the things that I've noticed in the last 4 or 5 fights is that you aren't aggressive early. If you think about it, Povetkin had to hit you in your mouth before you decided to step up and knock him out, like in the 7th or 8th round. Takam had to hit you in your mouth and kind of push you back before you decided to stop him late in the fight. Even Joseph Parker, you never even got started against him. You just won that fight simply because he didn't throw any punches. You really didn't go take the fight from him. It was a decision that you got based off the activity. But I can't remember one significant punch in that fight from any one of you guys, except Joseph Parker hitting you with a body shot and you backing up for about half a round. So I think you need to you need to pick up your aggression early in the fights, because what you notice is, and we're trying to be honest with you, is that your chin is a little suspect. I'm not saying you have a glass chin, because you do get up each time. So that means you're not getting knocked out cold like a Amir Khan and like someone who doesn't have a jaw at all. You have the ability to get stunned. So with that being said, you do have that amazing power punching. So I'm not saying go out reckless and try to knock out everybody in the first round, but what I'm saying is allow these fighters to feel your power early. Allow them to feel you early, to put them on the defense, to back them up, to make them passive. So then you could dissect these guys over time and eventually stop them and knock them out. That's how you need to fight. You don't need to fight in a way where you're being passive early and you're trying to give them a rhythm. And then guess what? You get in the ring with a puncher like Ruiz, or somebody who's not going to respect you. Not saying he didn't respect you as a man, but he came in to take your titles. He's not one of you fighters like Joseph Parker who was just happy that he was in the fight. He wanted to take your title. So when you fight somebody like that, if he doesn't feel you early, then he's going to land something on you. And as we talked about before, you have a suspect chin. Not a glass chin. I'm not going to call it that right now, because you get up every time, but you have a suspect chin. So be more aggressive early on in fights. Come out, throw a couple of right hands, see if you can land something, see if you could touch them early. And then another thing is you're a 6'6" guy, 6'6.5". You're going to be taller than most fighters probably, except Wilder and Fury. So with that type of height, you have to use it to your advantage. Last night, as you were fighting, I was looking at your posture and your body ergonomics, and it's just you were lowering yourself to throw punches at a 6'1", 6'2" guy, allowing him to catch you with counter right hands on the head. That's crazy. You should have fought tall and put him on the end of your jab. And you should have made him eat that jab the entire night until you set up that right hand or that hook the way you did in the third round when you knocked him down. And you should have did that for 5 or 6 rounds, where you took his you took everything out of him. You take his energy, you take his mojo, you take everything that he thought he had in that fight, and then you knock his ass out. And at some point, while you putting him on the end of that jab and you sticking that jab in his nose every time he even thinks about throwing a punch, he even think about moving, you sticking that jab in his nose. At some point, he's going to get lazy. At some point, he's going to lose focus. And you catch him with that right hand. You catch him with that uppercut. You catch him with that hook. You put him on the ground and you try to stop him. But you didn't do that last night. Your posture was bad. Your body ergonomics was bad. You wasn't aggressive early. You didn't make him feel you. And when he actually felt you in the third round, it didn't do anything but piss him off, because he had got comfortable in the fight at that point. So I would look at hiring a new trainer. Not saying your trainer and your coach isn't great, because I think his name's McCracken. He's a great trainer. He's a great coach. I'm not saying he's not great, but everybody isn't great for everybody. He trained you in the amateurs. He trained you all the way up to your 22nd fight, helped you get 3 world titles. So maybe keep him on as an assistant coach, but bring in another head coach. Get a new voice in your corner, because sometimes you need that. Because when you get too comfortable with the voice you have, and then these guys won't tell you the truth. They won't tell you, hey, you have a suspect chin. You need to come out aggressive. Hey, you have a suspect chin. Maybe lose some of the muscle in your body so you could be more fluid, so you could move your head more, so you could slip punches and avoid punches. Don't come in so muscular where you're robotic. So you need a new trainer. I noticed during the fight, it seemed like he couldn't motivate you. He couldn't get you up. His voice, his words weren't enough. To me, he didn't even make adjustments through the fight when he saw what Ruiz was doing from round 3 to round 5. Because round 3 to round 5, Ruiz actually opened up the door for you to recover fully from the 2 knockdowns in the third round and actually take the fight from him. But you didn't do it, because your corner, to me, did make adjustments and they couldn't motivate you. So maybe you need to get a new voice in your ear. Maybe you need to get somebody in your ear that can help you, that can motivate you and help you make those adjustments throughout the fight. I think you should focus on improving your killer instinct versus placing so much of your energy on outside shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching you and it seemed like you're just so focused on what's going on the outside. Your endorsement deals, doing all the commercials. I'm the A side, you the B side. I'm going to give you what I want to give you. I'm going to make $1 billion. I'm going to do this and do that. And you weren't focused on what got you here, which is the boxing, which is being a killer, which is having that killer instinct, which is going in the ring to destroy every time. I don't think you had that. And you showed me the last 3 or 4 fights that it's not about that. You're so worried about the business side. So I would try to refocus and improve on your killer instinct. And that's the killer instincts between round 1 and round 12, going in there to destroy a person. And that's how you got to do it, man. You have to remember what you're here for. You got to remember what's paying the bills. And yeah, it's cool to get the endorsements. It's cool to be on every commercial, to hang out with all the rappers, to be on your social media and you out with some beautiful women and your homies and the Bahamas and shit. That shit is cool. But I don't think you're at the level where you should do that yet. It's almost Adrian Bronner-esque, what you've been doing the last couple of years, except I don't think you're as bad as him because you don't drink like him and you don't do some of those things. But I think the focus is wrong. If you think about it, you try to model yourself after Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was Pretty Boy Floyd the Killer for 40 fights. He fought almost 10, 12 Hall of Famers and beat their ass. He fought over 15 to 16 champions, 20 champions in those first 40 fights. 16 to 20 champions in those first 40 fights. He beat everybody. He whooped everybody's ass. And if he had a close fight like he had with Luis Castillo, he came back and he easily outpointed him. He easily beat him the next fight. So he made up for those bad fights. He fought Diego Corrales. Diego Corrales was like 38-0 with like 37 knockouts. And Floyd, Pretty Boy Killer Floyd, came in the ring and took that man out. Dropped him like 6 times in the fight and totally destroyed the guy. He went in there with Oscar De La Hoya, moved up 2 weight classes from 140 to 154 to get that big $25 million paycheck. At that time, he was still Pretty Boy Floyd Mayweather. And he went in there and he took on a guy that was 5'11", 6 foot to his 5'7". And he beat the guy easily. And then he became Pretty Boy Floyd. Then he said, okay, now I got to focus on money because I got about 10 to 11 fights left. It's time for me to focus on the money part. Then he became Money Mayweather. Then he cared about the endorsements. Then he cared about making money outside the ring. Then he cared about making sure that his business was right and all that. And I'm not saying don't do that now because anything can happen. Only thing I'm telling you is hire the right people to do that. Keep your eye on it because you don't want nobody stealing from you. But focus on being that killer until you get to the point where you've established yourself and you built yourself enough to say, hey, I'm going to go and start focusing more on the business because I'm almost out of this thing. I'm almost out of here. I got about 5 to 6 more fights left. So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to build as much wealth as I can so I can retire and my family can be set for a couple of generations. The next thing I would do if I was you, Anthony, is just take about 6 to 8 months off. I wouldn't take an immediate rematch. I would take 6 to 8 months off, reevaluate my mindset as a fighter, not as a civilian, not as somebody that's walking around every day, but your mindset as a fighter. That's how you prepare for a fight. That's how you mentally get ready for a fight. That's how you accept the challenge of somebody that's coming in there to try to take your head off. You have to reevaluate that mindset. We talked about Killer Instinct early. This is a little different from Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct is actually when you're in the heat of the battle. And you got to have that Killer Instinct throughout the fight. Even if you down, you got to still try to have that Killer Instinct to knock that man out. Like Wilder did when he was down on the cards to Tyson Fury. Or like Wilder did when he was down to Luis Ortiz and almost got knocked out in the 7th round. And 2 rounds later, he pulled up something from inside and came back and knocked this man out. That's what you got to have. And I didn't see that last night. I felt like when Ruiz was getting the best of you, you started to fold like a cheap shirt. You thought he was going to be an easy touch. He wasn't an easy touch. And when he started to touch you, you kind of folded. And you didn't want it. You couldn't pull that killer from inside of you. So that's what I'm talking about with Killer Instinct. With reevaluating your mindset means as a fighter. Like, why do you fight? Why do you want to fight? Why should I continue to fight? If you're taking on a guy, how am I going to beat this guy? How could this guy possibly beat me? What can I do to stop him from using the great tools he has to defeat me? How can I overcome his assets to impose my will and win this fight? And you got to think that way from when you accept the fight all the way until you walk out of that ring on fight night, whether you win or lose. So your mindset you have to reevaluate your mindset. Try to put yourself in the mode to destroy every opponent that's in front of you moving forward. Create an alter ego. Like you see Beyonce, and I know she's a singer, but she has her alter ego, which is Sasha Fierce. When she's on stage, she's trying to give it to all. People probably can see her once in a lifetime with her ticket prices. So she's going to perform for that person that's only going to see her one time in their lifetime. And she's going to do it every time. She's not going to take nights off. And I think you need to change that mindset. I think you need to reevaluate your mindset as a fighter. And I think you need to come in to destroy everybody you're fighting. Just that's all you think is seek and destroy. That needs to be your mindset. Finally, I think you need to stop being so protective of your perception. To me, it seems like you and your team are always trying to protect this good boy, pretty boy, I'm so perfect, AJ, I talk perfect, I act perfect, I do everything perfect persona. I think it's played out. It seems like you're so worried about what the media and the public think about you. Stop giving a fuck, man. Your name is Anthony Joshua. You're one of the greatest fighters of this era. Like, why do you give a fuck? Be who you are. You know what I'm saying? Challenge yourself. I noticed how you will interview with certain people because they're going to ask you softball questions, but then you won't interview with other outlets that's going to actually challenge you, that's not on your side. Why not accept that challenge? I'm not saying go talk to somebody that's going to absolutely try to belittle you, but I'm just saying somebody's going to ask you the tough questions and have you to answer them. Because you know what? I think that builds character. I think that builds a tough mentality. I think that's going to make you stronger, not weaker. I think you will get better from that. I think you will develop tougher skin. So like last night, instead of you being embarrassed, you like, hey, I lost the fight. So what? I'll just pick myself and move on to the next one. And you can fight more free will. If you do that, the pressure will be off. You don't have to keep the pressure of, I got to be this perfect fighter. I got to be this perfect fighter. I got to be this perfect person out the ring. No, let people know I have flaws, man. I'm here to try to knock people's head off and make $1 million while I do it. And fight free, fight pressureless. So you can focus on your game. You can focus on building yourself. If I was you, AJ, over the next 5 years, I would just put my head down. I would put my head down and I would try to destroy every fucking opponent they put in front of me. I would die in that ring trying to destroy everybody they put in front of me. And at the end, after 5 years, let's say you fight 10 to 12 times. Let's say you win 11 of those 12, 10 of those 12. You're going to have $100+ million in your bank account. You're going to have 150 plus probably in assets. You're going to have a Hall of Fame legacy. And guess what? Everything you want, your name is going to live on forever in boxing history. Not U.S. boxing history, not U.K. boxing history. In the boxing history of this entire world, this entire universe, your name is going to live on forever with the greats like Ali. Ali could be dead for 100 years and his name and his voice is going to live on. And that's what you want. Put your fucking head down. Stop giving a fuck. And you got to remember, you still got your whole career in front of you, brother. Still got your whole career in front of you. You're 22-1 now. 21 knockouts. Great record. You're 28, 29 years old. You got a good 8 more years to fight in your prime without a lot of punishment. Take advantage of it. You had a setback last night. Who gives a fuck? Pick yourself up and remember, you are the master of your fate. You control your legacy. You control your life. You control what you do in boxing. Pick yourself up and get it done. Fuck what people talking about. Fuck what everybody say. Pick yourself up. Dust yourself off. Listen to the message I've delivered to you and get it done. In 5 years, I want to look back and say, man, Anthony Joshua took that huge loss to Ruiz. It was all over the world news. It was all over social media. It was embarrassing. He stepped away. He came back a fucking monster. He's beat everybody. He's fought. Even if you don't beat Wilder, even if you don't beat Fury, he got in the ring with him. He didn't quit. He put up a tough fight. But he beat everybody else. He made $100 million. He's headed to the Hall of Fame. His name is going to live on forever. What's today? June 2nd, 2019. So, June 2nd, 2024. Let's revisit this thing. Let's see where Anthony Joshua is. If Anthony Joshua is giving up, and he's going to be weak-minded, you probably say, hey, Anthony Joshua was a good fighter. His record was 29-5. Got dropped in the first round by Wilder. Got outclassed by Fury. Got knocked out by Joe Joyce. Got knocked out by Effie Ajagba. You know, he beat a couple of decent fighters. He beat Dillian White a second time. He beat Ruiz, you know, in the third match. You know, anything can happen. But I want to see Anthony Joshua came back and destroyed. So, Anthony, if I could talk to you, that's what I would say to you. That's what I would tell you, because your loss affected the whole boxing community, and I'm a part of that community. And, you know, all of us wish we could say something to you. But, hey, brother, keep your head up. At the end of the day, Deontay is our guy over here in the States, but you still a brother from Africa, and you still our brother. So, fight back. Get up off your ass. Do what you got to do to get it done. This is another edition of PvR Sports. Thanks for listening. Peace out. Thank you for listening to the PvR Sports Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch new episodes and PvR clips. Like our Facebook page and share with your friends if you enjoyed this podcast. As we say in the South, catch you later.